Well, welcome folks to Toowoomba Forward. I'm your host Tim Entwistle, and joining me right now is Robert Relvas. Robert, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
Thank you. Could you start by introducing yourself to the viewers and telling us about the qualities that you possess that you believe will make you a great counsellor for the next 4 years?
Sure. My name's Robert Relvas. I started my working career in the Air Force and ended up working with customer service in council, and I have been there for over 13, or coming up to 13 years now. So I've taken tens of thousands of calls. So I've got a good understanding of, what is impacting the community out there on their day-to-day life. And what I'm trying to bring to council as a counsellor is that wealth of knowledge and experience to be able to look at what we can do on the operational side. I understand that as a counsellor we're strategic. However, strategically speaking, it's counsellors that chair the meetings for all those departments.
Sure.
And it's counsellors that sign off on the budgets for all those departments. I don't know if you're aware of it at the moment, we've got over 200 vacancies. And that is impacting the day-to-day operations of council, such as, if someone rings up, Tim, about a stray dog running around on one of our main streets and something like that, and how that's a danger to the community and the dog itself. And our response is we have to say, animal management will be there somewhere between 1 and 5 business days.
Yeah.
Is that reasonable? You look at the salaries that 6 executive managers are getting paid over $1.9 million for their salary package.
Wow.
Are you getting your money's worth?
Per executive? Or
No,
is
that's just for the 6 executives.
Combined?
Including the CEO.
Okay, I see. So in switching back to 2020, because this is not the first time that you've run for council, according to ECQ data, out of the 32 candidates that were running, you finished last with 1.12% of the vote. Why do you think that was the case? And what are you doing differently this election to achieve roughly 32,000 votes necessary to make it into council? And for voters who might not understand, 32,000, that's 32,000 individual people voting for you. So what are you doing to sort of get over that line, and how are you going to cross that in the next 3 weeks?
I'll admit, Tim, first time around I was very nervous. I was very green. I didn't know what to do, and I was limited to funds and that sort of thing. So it was a whole new experience for myself. This time round I've actually learned from that, so that I focused my attention where I believe it should be. I think I've matured a lot in that back then I was very angry with what was happening with operational side, and that's where people don't understand the difference between operation and strategic. So I think I probably came across perhaps too negative. Council is trying. There are things that they've done in the last 4 years that I'm quite impressed with and proud of to have been part of that operational centre there. I've taken this time a longer period because being a council worker, there is a conflict of interest. So I've had to take leave without pay to run my campaign. So in this instance, I used my first part of the leave that I took to get things organised. I've actually got flyers this time, got the call flu signs. I booked in to have Q&As at different buildings throughout the region. I've got one at Gumbaynggirr coming up tomorrow. I've got 2 scheduled for one day out at Pittsworth. I'm doing some out at Crow's Nest. So I'm doing a lot more contact with the community this time, but also better planned and managed, I feel.
Okay, great to hear. In the conversations that you've been having now with voters around the community, what is the biggest council-related issue that you're hearing from them, and what do you hope to achieve or to solve that problem for them should you be elected in 2024? Okay,
so from the calls that I've received and the forums that I've attended, or the community groups that I've attended and that sort of thing, it is still the basic needs of the community. parks aren't being mowed, dogs complaints, local law issues and that sort of thing. And the time frame that it takes it. I mean, you know, if you ring up and complain about a couple of houses down from your place, Tim, that it's been overgrown and you've seen vermin coming out of it and all that sort of thing, it can take up to 30 business days for council to action on it. And the councillors don't know this, they're not privy to this. So I do have ideas for where I'd like to see the direction of council go. I mean, there is no question about it. We've got to have water security, and part of that is doing the dam upgrade. But to do that, I don't want the entire burden to be put on the ratepayers. It goes back to my first point in that we have to reduce red tape. We have to make sure the CEO is more accountable, that the frontline staff are there to service everyone's basic needs, which is, like I said, you know, lawn mowing, parks and things that the community need. That's what's impacting them, is that they'll ring up and complain about a pothole, and it might take 3 or 4 weeks to finally get construction maintenance to fill that pothole.
Yeah.
That's what people are telling me when I'm walking amongst them, or when I've been sitting on the phones taking in calls. It's the things that impact them on their data. They want to know about the security and that sort of thing, but it's not a big issue for them. For them is to know that, hey, I want to take my kids out with my pup down to the park and the grass is this high and we're terrified because we've seen a brown snake in there. Right. That's what's affecting the people out there.
Great, thank you for that. Turning our attention to your campaign and one of the posts that you've made on your Facebook page that promotes some of your unique features. You've promoted the fact that you're not a member of any religious group.
Yep.
You do not run a family business in the region.
Yep.
And you are not a member of any boards or committees.
Yep.
Why do you believe these are actually selling points for your campaign?
For me, is I find that when I've spoken to people, once again going back to the customer service side of it, the feedback that I've been getting about when they make contact with councillors, that it's hard to get hold of them. And they're all tied up with their own businesses or their own committees or board members that they're of and that sort of thing. Or they have specific agendas that those particular groups might have, whether it's a political party or whatever. And the point that I was trying to make there is that I myself, I have had a business, a huge business in Brisbane, and it was operating out of the Brisbane Arcade. I had level 1 and 2 for many years, and we were exporting and importing and exporting products throughout Australia, South Pacific and Asia. So what I was trying to put across with that is, I no longer have those ties. I'm not affiliated with anyone. I will be a full-time counsellor. If you need to contact me, whether it's via email or phone or whatever, I will be available, unless of course I'm in a meeting or something like that. Sure. And that was the point that I was trying to make across.
You mentioned the idea of people, you implied that people who are running a family business or being members of boards or committees or being members of a religious group have hidden agendas. You just said, are you concerned about that? Or?
No, I'm not concerned about it, because I know that when you do run a business and that sort of thing, that is always back of your mind, you know, with the cost of living and the expenditure of running a business these days. I mean, when I had mine, it was during the recession that Paul Keating said we had to have. So in the back of their mind, they would have things that they're thinking about, you know, when they're driving from one area to another. As a counsellor, they might have an issue with a particular meeting with the board and whatever, whereas I'll be free of that. My thoughts will be wholly and solely in relation to the job at task, what I need to do for the community, and see where things can be improved and drastic changes made for the betterment of everyone. Does that answer your question?
Sort of, because what I'm interested in is that the idea of, because the Local Government Act has made it very clear that people who have a business affiliation, a religious affiliation,
yep.
or a like a council or board or committee affiliation can't vote on any issues that are pertinent to those affiliations.
And with that, I'm free of all that.
Yeah.
So I don't have to excuse myself because, hey, I am a member of this particular board or this particular religion group that has requested or putting in an application for expansion of their building or something like that.
Yeah.
I haven't got those sort of ties. I can be in there for all those decision makings, all those conversations, and not having to excuse myself out of the meeting because of the fact that I do have ties.
But I would just say that you said that it is an issue though that people have these hidden agendas like this back in the, you said word for word you said back in their head making decisions.
It's only assumption that I'm making. I know myself when I was running my business. I'd be sitting down in a meeting with a prospective client, and I'd be thinking that in the back of my mind, I've got to make sure that I'm down at the shipyard at such and such a time because I've got stock coming in from America and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So my thoughts weren't concentrated on that area, and I feel as though that I want to be able to have a clear mind and be there as a full representative.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that. Switching gears now to housing affordability and availability of homes to rent, which is a major issue that ratepayers are concerned about. This is a multi-level government approach that needs to be taken in terms of federal, state and local government working together. But what role do you think council has to play in the process of approving more housing? And in principle, do you support things like high density living in the Toowoomba CBD?
Well, I think it depends on the individual. I mean, I myself, I prefer to have a yard that, you know, I can run around out the back with the dog, I can do my own gardening and that sort of thing. And to be able to have that, you need a reasonable sized block of land.
Sure.
I don't like seeing these smaller blocks that we're getting in the later developments that are coming through. I mean, some of the blocks I've seen as a customer service officer, because we do take all these plans and that sort of thing, and I look at them and, you know, 435 square metres, and I think to myself, you might as well live in a unit because you really have got no yard. And once again, being a customer service officer, I'm the one that's getting the phone calls that the neighbour next door is complaining that each time he goes out in his little backyard, the neighbour's dog starts barking. You know, things like people are complaining that they can see straight into the house next door, and they don't like their kids seeing what's happening through that particular window and that sort of thing. What I would like to do is, and I know that the cost of land is the crucial thing. To get bigger blocks, it's going to cost more money. And at the moment, when you look at a vacant block and how much it does cost to buy it, for a young family starting off to build their very first home, that might be all that they can afford, which is fine. But once they start having children and things like that, they're going to want a yard and that sort of thing, and it's going to be, you know, limited to how the kids can play and that sort of thing. Do I agree with more indensed living in Toowoomba CBD area? Sure. If we can find and there is the need to have more units and that sort of thing, I'm happy with that. I don't want to see blocks out there, Highfields or out at Westbrook and that sort of thing, where we've got a big open space, and yet the developers are coming in and building these smaller and smaller blocks, and then once again, customer service officer gets the phone call that they've just received a parking fine because the roads are so narrow and they had to put two wheels up on the grass, and if they put them properly parked, then traffic can't get through.
Yeah.
Once again, it goes back to the developers making sure that they can squeeze as much as they can of each development. So it's a fine line to walk with, Tim, because you have to look at the cost of buying a bigger block and how that compares to buying a smaller block. And then you have to look on the other side that the developers want to try and squeeze as much as they can from the blocks that they're developing. Once again, being a customer service officer, I'm the one that gets all the calls from the southern states where all these little kiddie house estates are being promoted. And the people are saying, oh, the price is fantastic. Down here, we'd be paying 3 times, as much. Now, I just want to ask, where's the nearest hospital? Where's the nearest railway station? Or where's the nearest bus? Sorry, we haven't got that.
Yeah. I getcha. Thank you for that. Asking the question now about sustainability and responsibly managing the environment. It's top of mind for many Toowoomba Region ratepayers. What are your convictions in regards to climate change and whether or not council has a role to play in it?
Yep, I think a lot of people have started to realise that there is something happening, and it's happening with the climate on more regular occurrence. You look at, for the last few years now, we've had a lot of huge floods around the world, not just in our own country. Fires, once again, around the world, not just in our own country. So I do believe that we are responsible for what's happening, and it's been something that's been building up over time to the point now that a lot of the people that perhaps 10, 15 years ago thought this was all, some sort of mirrors and tricks that was happening in the background are starting to realise that, yes, this is something that we have to be concerned about. I'm proud to say that Toowoomba Regional Council is taking a step in this. I know personally that our fleet department is starting to bring in hybrid vehicles instead of just the normal diesel and petrol vehicles. So they're making a change there. The new Toowoomba City Library, the roof, when they built that, they put all solar panels all through there, same as they did at the Charlton Depot. Our council was one of the leading councils in Queensland where we actually purchased the very first type of fully electric ride-on mowers for our parks and gardens and that sort of thing. So that's a great thing. I like to see that keep going. I would like to eventually see the entire fleet changed over to full electrical, but I'm also concerned with the cost of doing that. Not only that they're expensive at the moment to buy fully electric vehicles, but to be able to build the charging stations for the council vehicles that are based throughout our region. So we're talking Yarraman down to Millmerran, Cecil Plains across to Toowoomba. So if vehicles are parked there, they need to have some sort of a charging base. So once again, it's a bit of a two-edged sword, but something like that I think can be achieved over a period of time. Sure. And I'd like to see that come through.
Okay, thank you for that. Just to follow up, in principle, do you support the use of travel restrictions on Toowoomba Region residents as a means to reduce carbon emissions? For example, limiting residents' ability to travel outside of their suburb?
No, I don't. Unfortunately, once again, with this, we have looked at public transport and it's all numbers games when it comes to public transport. It's a state thing, it's not a local government. The state won't do it unless there's the numbers there. And a couple of the councillors, Melissa Taylor was one of them, that actually did some work on this as part of her portfolio. And we see it ourselves, Tim. We might be sitting at a traffic light and we see a bus going past and there's only 3 or 4 people in it, so it won't happen. I remember years ago when Di Thorley was mayor of Toowoomba before amalgamation, she wanted to bring up the train from Brisbane to Toowoomba so that we could have a direct line straight into Brisbane. And even back then, the state government said, if you can guarantee of having 2,000 passengers per day on the train, we would then consider doing it. So it's a numbers thing. Restricting people to cut down their carbon, unfortunately we can't, because it's a huge regional area that we have. And I mean, you and I are living here in Toowoomba. I'm not saying that you do, but you might have cousins or relatives that are down in Millmerran. If you're restricted, how are you going to go down and see them? Sure. Or they want to come and see you for the day. Yeah. You want to be able to get our community involved. We don't want that sort of segregation. I don't believe with that.
Yeah, sure. So just to be clear, if hypothetically there was perfect public transport between all parts of the region and basically no excuse to not use that public transport system, would you then be open to considering banning people's or limiting people's use of transport?
I think once you start going down that path, you're becoming a dictatorial society. You're dictating to people what they can and can't do. It's nice and easy for us to sort of let someone else make the decisions for us, but some things we need to be able to decide ourselves. And
Sure.
if we have governments that start making those sort of decisions as to where you can go, and no. I wouldn't agree with that.
Okay, thank you. Switching gears now to crime across the Toowoomba region. Mm-hmm. This is a massive issue that all levels of government have a role to play. But what does council have to contribute towards a more safe and secure region?
Okay, well, as you said, it is a state government thing.
Correct.
We can't do anything apart from, which I would like to see, is lobby the state government to make sure that our police stations do have the right funding, do have all the tools that they need to try and bring this under control somehow. I mean, I'm old school. You know, when I was going through school and that sort of thing, if we stepped out of line, we were caned. But times have changed. We can't sort of discipline youth as we could way back then, and I understand the reasoning to why that. But by the same token, our police should be able to have the tools that they need to be able to try and curb some of what's happening.
So on the council side of things, though, what do you think council can do to contribute towards a more safe and secure region?
Well, I mean, I see that over the years, as I said, I've been there for 13 years, and even before amalgamation, different councillors and mayors that have come through have made more parks, have put, you know, roller skating parks and that sort of thing. That's probably all that they can do as far as policing, but certainly lobbying the police commissioner or the state government, would be the state government, to get them to, you know, look at the needs that, you know, we have. I mean, I know that some of our smaller towns like Gumbunji and that, they've got a little police station there, but it's not manned 24/7.
Sure.
So if something happens, you know, they have to come from Highfields or from Toowoomba or something like that. So we have to look at that, and I'm well aware of the fact that currently the Queensland Police Station is having issues with recruiting staff. I mean, council is as well. Like I said, over 200 vacancies there.
Sure.
So that is a problem.
Yeah, okay, thank you. As the Toowoomba region moves forward into the future, residents are concerned about the rich traditions that we have being sacrificed for our bold ambitions. These concerns were highlighted just recently with the council decision on the Berghofer Stadium upgrades that could necessitate the demolition of a 131-year-old tennis club and bowls club. In your view, how can the council assure residents that our rich traditions will be preserved in the face of bold changes?
Well, once again, because I'm not a councillor, I'm not privy to what their plans that they've got in place at the moment and what they're looking at doing and the discussions that they're having behind closed doors. I believe, and that's my slogan, community first. Go out there, consult with the community, have an open forum somewhere, let the community bring their questions directly to the councillors. If it takes 2 or 3 days to hear everyone, do so. But at the same time, don't talk over the questions that people are asking you. Honestly answer them as best as you can. And the only way that you're going to get a resolution is by talking to the people. If you can explain to the locals that are living around the Berghofer Centre what the exact impact will be, the duration of that impact. I mean, if it's only going to be for 10 days or whatever the case is, we have to be mindful that we already do that with Carnival of Flowers. Is this going to be an upgrade really for just one event 8 years down the track and then nothing else is coming after that? Is it worthwhile? Can you give us some sort of indication of what plans you're wanting to have post Olympics? What is going to be done with that stadium? Will it be actually better utilised by some of the other sporting clubs and groups in our region? Are we going to bring in, you know, state football players and that sort of thing to have games and that those sort of matches. If you are, well, then there could be a benefit to the community with the money that comes into the community. If we're not going to have those sort of things, then perhaps we should not look at upgrading it and doing it somewhere else.
Sure. Great. Just the last question for you, Robert. If there was one thing that you could say now to electors to secure their vote for you, what would that be?
That the experience that I have being a customer service officer, as I said, over tens of thousands of calls, I know what affects them. I can bring that information into the council chambers. As a customer service officer, I'm privileged in that I attend all the enterprise bargaining agreements. So I'm also privy to all the joint consultative meetings that not even the councillors attend. And the JCC meetings are the best ones because that happens every quarterly, and that's where all the departments meet with all the executive managers of all those departments. We raise issues that are brought to us from customer service, for example, what customers are telling us, that we can put it on the table and discuss. Other departments like animal management or stuff like that can be discussed as to why is it taking 1 to 5 business days. So I've been an advocate for that sort of thing as well. Also around the table we have union organisers from all the different trade unions are represented, and the union delegates of council employees as well. And the information that comes out of that is really eye-opening. And some of the reasoning that the managers use or the executive managers use as to why it's been done this way, you think to yourself, if the public only knew what was happening, councillors don't know this. This is where I feel I can say to the councillors, hey, this is what's happening in the operational side. I've spoken to councillors in the past and they've said to me, well, Robert, that's operational, we're strategic. And I remind them, strategically, you chair those department meetings, you strategically sign off on the budgets. So you should be asking the questions, where are those funds going? And I see that you're going to be paying an outsourced company to do something or other. Why? Why haven't we got the manpower to do it? So I've got all those, I know what questions to ask. I've got all that information up my sleeves that I'm aware of that has been going on for almost 13 years. That's got to change. We're too top heavy with executive staff, with managers and supervisors, and to do the operational needs of council, we've got 200 odd vacancies, frontline staff that have to be out there. And that's what I hope to, well, I know that I will bring into council as a councillor.
Okay.
Since amalgamation, no other candidate has had this experience and this knowledge to bring into the council.
That's great. Robert Relvas, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.